starting. We say we've got nearly 600 MPs that Scotland didn't vote for, braying like donkeys to try to enact something which Scotland didn't vote for.
And that's an insult to donkeys.
Was the case for independence made more coherently. And I think you're right, Ian. What we've been seeing, just especially over the last 24 hours, but also over the last 4.5 years, is that the Scottish voice is being ignored at Westminster. Scotland voted 62% to stay in the European Union. Now, I know that there are a lot of fans of Scottish independence that are sceptical or against the EU. But the one thing I will say, I am convinced that all supporters of Scottish independence are Democrats. And if an independent Scotland were to decide with 62% to join the EU, they would accept that. What we're seeing right now are sneering faces, braying donkeys. There was a point of order made in the debate yesterday when Ian Blackford was talking about the food shortages. We had the major supermarkets writing an open letter to the government yesterday saying that things are going to get possibly very dodgy with food supplies if there is a no-deal Brexit. And as Ian Blackford was talking about this, Caroline Lucas, the Green MP for Brighton, one of the Brighton constituencies, said behind her, she heard folks saying, "Oh well, if there's food shortages, they can go to the chippy." Now there's something else been going around on social media tonight where when Ian Blackford stood up, I've not actually listened to the post yet.
That's not
either at PMQs today or at during his speech in the debate. Apparently, you get somebody telling you to F.
Colin, hold on. There, one of us has to really. There we go. I think it's at your end, Ian.
Some of you've got a cold.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got some interference coming through. I can hear as well.
I think it's,
but just go back to the point. This F off. I don't know if any of you watched Prime Minister's Questions today.
No.
Ian Blackford gets 2 questions. His first question, we got the answer, insofar you can call it an answer from Theresa May. And there was a great camera shot. And he was posing his second question. All you could see was Theresa May sneering at him. And I think this is something that we in Scotland have to realise. We have to get the message out because the message isn't going to be in the mainstream media. But the reactions and the actions of folk in Parliament, and I don't care if they're English MPs, Northern Irish MPs, Welsh MPs, or the Scottish Tory lobby fodder. The reaction is Scotland. Anything the SNP does is bad because Scotland wants to break up this so-called precious union. This is the precious union we were told 2014 to lead as a nation of equals, and we have been seeing it every day, day in, day out, that anybody who is standing up for Scotland is treated with, at best, contempt, at best, disdain, and usually actually insulted.
Yeah.
And that is how we need out. It's as simple as that.
Definitely.
I've not even gone to the Brexit scenario. Theresa May's plan I'll let a few of you guys come in. I'll come back on to Theresa May's plan maybe in a few minutes.
Just to catch up with you what you were saying there, Paul, I don't know if it's my audio that's been playing up a bit. You've got a situation where when Theresa May gave her statement to the Parliament on Monday, she sat and listened to Jeremy Corbyn giving a response, and then walked out before Ian Blackford got the chance to respond to the Prime Minister's statement. So, ultimately we are constantly ignored in that House, have been for many, many hundreds of years in Scotland, and we need to get away from it. We ultimately need to potentially call our MPs back, and that's one of the things that's happening in Scotland now is obviously the Scottish budget's going through, which is relying as well on the Scottish Greens supporting the vote. Now, is there not some sort of situation where if the Scottish Parliament can't agree a budget that would cause some sort of Scottish election to occur?
It's possible. I mean, there is a with the Scottish budget. It is possible that if the budget cannot get passed, that there will have to be a new Holyrood election. I think what the Greens are doing is all right. I mean, there's been a lot of folk saying, "Oh, Greens, will lose the mandate and all the rest of it." If there is another Holyrood election, that Holyrood election has to be run on the mandate of independence. And it is absolutely all right that the Greens turn around and say, we wish to see the budget being spent differently. We wish other priorities to be set. And if those priorities cannot be set, then we will not support the budget. That is absolutely all right. What I would like to say here is that the Scottish Greens are the only party in Holyrood who have actually put up an alternative proposal. Scottish Labour just say, we want more money, we want to put money in this, we want more money in that. The Scottish Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, they won't support the budget on a matter of principle until a second independent referendum is taken at the table. Now, I'm sorry, you are elected as a member of Parliament or as a member of the Scottish Parliament to represent your constituents. And if your constituents, and even if we believe the opinion polls at 45%, still, after 4.5 years, pro-independence, that is a high amount of folk in Scotland who are pro-independence. And to just ignore them, to suggest that you should tell them to shut up, get back in your box, eat your cereal, otherwise we won't vote for any budget. That is irresponsible.
Yeah. Well, getting into that, what you said about that Theresa May walked out on right before Ian Blackford was supposed to speak. Why do you think are the SNP willing to accept more humiliation from Wastmonster and DUP chippy comments, or what do you think? What's your take on that, Callum?
I think personally the SNP should have came home quite some time ago. I think the SNP, as you and Colin said, like you touched on the SNP matter earlier on, and Colin touched on the European Union matter earlier on. I'm not an SNP guy, but it doesn't mean that if they called a definitive decision tomorrow that they wouldn't have my backing. They don't have my backing until they declare the date, as far as I'm concerned. If they declare the date, I'll vote independence because I believe in it. I don't believe in the European Union, but us in Scotland had to vote. They voted to stay. It's not the outcome I wanted, but I respect it, I tolerate it because that's democracy. That's what it is, that's what I want to live under. Now, we've tried to play fairly with the Parliament down south. We've tried to be progressive to try and help other parts of the United Kingdom, to try and bring a wee bit of progressiveness to other parts disjointed parts of the United Kingdom. In Scotland, as Colin says, sheer contempt. I'm a bit surprised that they haven't come home. I'm a bit surprised it's been left as long as what it has before there's been some sort of an outrage to bring them up. When we had the walkout a few months ago, I thought that was it. I was sitting at the telly excited, going, right, this is it. But the more it drags on, the more I'm wondering where it's going to come from, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Ian?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I was just going to reference that there, Callum, the fact that they have previously walked out of Parliament. It was obviously after Ian Blackford was wanted to hold a vote, which under parliamentary rules, which we've seen quite often, because I don't know, a lot of our watchers probably do watch a lot of the Parliament channels, and I've seen so much content coming out in relation to all sorts of different matters involving government policy. There's I can't remember the MP's name. He's like Bonson. He might actually be Boris Johnson's brother, the guy with blonde hair.
Michael Fabricant.
So in one of these situations where he can ask a closed question of Parliament, and the Prime Minister has to answer the question. She's read the question, Parliament's read the question, but you're not getting to see the question. And the second one I noticed, he's always got this really smug grin on his face when he gets to ask these closed questions. It was must have been something to do in relation to air travel, because he was referencing in his response to the Prime Minister, Birmingham Airport. So does that mean there's going to be an expansion of airspace contracts? Is that going to come to Scotland? Is that going to go to what is he talking about? This is what's Parliament for, is to find out the answers to these questions. We don't even get to hear some of them. And it's just, that's a Tory, isn't it, for you? Never trust a Tory.
That sounds very much like Michael Fabricant, we say is Boris Johnson hairstyle. I mean, he's a zoomer. The one thing that I would here say, and I'm not towing the SNP party line by any stretch of the imagination. Over the last few months, I've been at home, so I've been able to watch quite a bit more what's been going on at Parliament. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those geeks. I'll sit down for 3 hours, 4 hours. I'll watch the House of Commons. You know, I mean, I'll do it like, and it's maybe not good for my blood pressure, but what I have been noticing is that the SNP, we sent down 56 MPs in 2015. We lost a few good folk 2 years later at the snap election. They went down basically saying, okay, we lost the referendum, we respect the result of the referendum, and we will use this mandate to make our voice heard, which they have been doing. If you've been looking closely, you were talking about the walkout, Ian, just over the last couple of months, every single member of Parliament from the SNP, in their speeches, in their points of order, in their interventions, they are more and more making the point that Scotland needs to be an independent country. So I think they're doing their job. Maybe we'd like to see them just come home and tell them where to go. I can understand that. But what they're doing is they are playing by the rules which we are currently governed by. Rules which mean that if Theresa May says now is not the time, they don't get a Section 30 order, which is a democratic outrage. I think it's the best thing they can do, because what they're doing now is they are showing how Scotland's voice is ignored in this so-called precious union. They are highlighting it. It's not necessarily being reported. It's not necessarily being reported in mainstream media.
No.
But if you look, you can see how Scotland is being treated in this so-called precious union. And that's what they beat it out good.
Well, what I was going to say on the media front, which is an interesting one, I was in a shop first thing this morning, and a guy walked up to the counter before us, and he had a copy of the Record, the Daily Record, and he had a copy of the National. And I actually felt like compelled to say to him, like, hey, that's quite an interesting political mix. And he said, it's all covered in our house. And that's the important thing that's happened since the 2014 referendum in Scotland, is people have been more politically aware for the last 4 or 5 years. They've taken an interest in it, and they are watching it for themselves. They're seeing the feats of Parliament. You watch the Scottish Parliament on Facebook, and you can watch the Westminster Parliament on Facebook, and the contradiction between the two houses is astronomical. And you see people in the comment section as well just saying, look at the difference, look at there's no shouting, there's no screaming down, there's none of this bickering. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the content in the Scottish Parliament is absolute nonsense. You know, it's for many years it's been the Tories constantly barking on about SNP getting independence. I've not heard them mention that once in the last 3 months, so they have very much dropped the independence agenda off their question in Scottish Parliament.
That's actually what I've heard Nicola say quite a bit during Parliament sessions, that in response to what's her name, Ruth.
Richard Leonard usually.
Yeah, but also Ruth.
He always asks a question that actually relates just solely to powers controlling Westminster.
No,
it's
yeah, but
you're a dafty. Why are you asking the Scottish Parliament to make changes on something they can't influence?
No, but that's
the English MP, politicians. They get sent up to manage the Scotland office.
Yeah, but they
don't have a clue.
That's not what I meant. Like I said, she hasn't mentioned Scottish independence in quite a while, and that's what Nicola usually says, is that in discussion with Ruth, that that the Tory party or party members in Scottish Parliament, they mention Scottish independence more than the SNP does. So.
Yeah.
In response to her again saying, well, it's only about Scottish independence for the SNP, it's only this and that. Well,
I mean, they're running scared.
Yeah, that's it.
Scared. They know what's going on. And it is, as you say, Raymond, it's predominantly at the minute Jackson Carlaw, and of course our friend wee Wally Rennie. They're always carping on about independence. I was saying the SNP must take a second independence vote off the table. Again, I go back to what I said before. If folk in Scotland want a referendum, who are you as an MSP to say that Scotland should not have the choice?
But it's irony as well that he's all for a second referendum on Brexit. He's got no issue with that question being asked again, because he wasn't happy with that answer. The difference is Scotland's not asking for a rerun of the independence question, because it's ultimately a different question. The question that was asked in 2014 was, should Scotland be an independent country? And at that point, we were under the impression that if we voted to remain in the UK, our membership of the EU would be guaranteed and protected. Now we're asking the question, should Scotland be an independent nation within the European Union, or should Scotland remain in the Union with the United Kingdom? That is a basically different question we're having to ask the Scottish people. But that's ultimately if we ask that question before the 29th of March.
I don't agree exactly, but it shouldn't be the question of should Scotland be independent within the European Union, because for the very fact then the two will be connected in the same question. It should be first independence, and then the people can decide afterwards.
Answered that, the being in the EU part with our vote in the referendum. So
I know. I know that, and I agree with you on that. But the thing is, if you put that in the question for the second Indy referendum, it should only be about independence, and then afterwards people can decide what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Right, first of all, I want to go back a wee bit. And Colin was saying about basically the English Parliament never listening to us. I think it's just becoming more apparent, the fact that we have so many representatives in English Parliament that are pro-independent instead of the typical arse-kissers that go down there to protect the union first and foremost. Now, I also think when we had the referendum vote, I think they allowed that based on ignorance at best, because I was quite surprised, and you call me naive as well, how many youth voted for independence. And I think when you take in the age range of the lowest belt up to the ages of 24, 25, how many people actually voted yes? I think there's been a fire spark there, and that's how we keep actually seeing how they're deflecting the issue so hard, because we've had for years it's been pursuing it and campaigning it, but now we're seeing generations coming through that are going to carry it. And that's the thing that's going to scare them the most, because it doesn't matter in a year, 2 year, 3 year, 4, 5 years down the line now, we can even bring in another 5 and 6 years. There's still people that are going to carry that momentum. It's not going to go away for a very, very long time. And basically we're in the stage now where independence is the only option. It's the only mindset in this country. On the part where you're saying about the independence vote, I'd agree with that to a certain extent, you know, in the Union or in the European Union, based on the vote. But I do think it should be an absolute priority just to state that it should be an independent country first, because we've had support from the European members saying Scotland's welcome to join the European Union in the case of independence, so that much is going to be a formality anyway. Definitely. So just to go ahead with basically the same rerun as what we had in 2014, and I firmly think we're going to smash it, to be honest with you guys.
Definitely.
Well, I think potentially what could happen if we turn around and have some sort of independence referendum before it's the 29th of March and we vote for independence, that could see the UK's current agreements with the EU transfer straight to Scotland. And then what the EU would have to do is effectively respect the Scottish backstop, which would be that wee bit of land border now between England and Scotland, because I think in the same time frame you could be looking at a unified Ireland. You know, we could be having a referendum there to unify the people of Ireland again. That might be the only way to solve the Irish backstop. So it's, you know, because you constantly see it in Westminster, they're talking about what they don't want in this Brexit deal. Well, what do they want? What do they actually want to achieve? All I can see is they want to become Little England, and I have no intention of being any more part of that than anyone else in Scotland is.
Definitely.
So that's why I generally think we're going to have a vote in weeks.
I think you highlighted a good thing there, though, mate. Like, we haven't heard what they've wanted. We're just hearing the will of the British people. Now, the only person, and this is quite an odd thing to say at best, the only person I've actually heard come out and say anything about what I want after Brexit has been Jacob Rees-Mogg. And it's basically cheaper shoes for kids that go to school. Now, that may be a good thing, right? But what does that do about the failing NHS? What does that do about the cuts in people living in poverty? What does that do about the lack of teachers, about the lack of police officers? What does that do for the road standard? Because we've got potholes massed up and down the country. What does that do for real issues? And we've not heard one solid member of Parliament actually come out and try and address that. It's the sheer fact they're going, well, the European Union's not playing our game, so we're not going to play that. And again, the Scottish government, the SNP, should be looking at it and go, well, if they're wanting to act like children, let the adults be adult. Put it to the people. Let's use the mandate. Let's get our independence. Let's leave the sinking ship, boys.
Exactly. Getting to the Facebook part of it, William Forbes a while back already put something on there. You just have to look at some of the speeches made by SNP members and the derogatory remarks that are being made by the latest being made. The latest one telling Ian Blackford to F off. It has come to an end. The EU aren't prepared to negotiate anymore. It's time for Nicola to press the button onwards and upwards.
Yeah, obviously that decade I missed a lot of the Facebook stuff, but just give a shout out to a good few groups, because there is obviously a lot of people watching us tonight So shout out to Scotland Shall Fight, posted by Frankie. Ian posted us in the Spider Principle. We had Alan Stewart posted us in the People's Republic of Dundee. And Joanne Burrows posted us in Indy 2. So thanks for the shares, guys. Thanks for helping us get the message out there. Remember, these are the kind of conversations. Get cracking on with the conversation on the Facebook. Let us know your thoughts on Brexit, what you think is going to happen. And obviously we can try and get your point of view. And if you are wanting to kind of join in the kind of panel base, feel free to PM the page, People's Doorstep Referendum. And we've got a Facebook community group there. We like to share independence-related content, and you can always find us on there chilling out.
Could I just give a shout out to Independence Live, great friends who are also carrying the show tonight. Thanks, Kevin, for your support. And again, same applies. Anybody listening on indylive.radio or through the Independence Live sites, feel free to get in touch with us on Facebook via the People's Doorstep Referendum. I'd like to come back to just a couple of points that we made. I agree, Callum, the question of Scottish independence has to be divided from future membership of the European Union. Raymond, you were saying the same thing. Scotland has to be an independent country, and then it is for the people in Scotland to decide the future relationship with the EU.
Exactly.
I personally, I am a fan of the EU. It has enabled me to spend over two-thirds of my life in Germany. I'm loving it. I'm having a ball. This is an opportunity that the UK government is going to deny millions of younger folk due to the hostile environment. And we're talking about younger folk that are moving to Scotland, and maybe, as a lot of our SNP MPs have done, spent time in the early years in Europe, or as a lot of Germans and other Europeans have done in their early years, moved to Scotland. Some have stayed, some went back home, but have all been enriched by the experience. And this is, for me, what the European Union means, but I'm not going to preach about the EU here. I want to make another point. We're being ignored at Westminster. And it's not just about young folk. We have also got an older generation who are also pro-independence. And we've got the same story in the older generation as we have in the younger generation. We get some living back in for 50 years, longer, campaigning for Scottish independence. When we were just a wee niche group of ballbags who nobody took seriously. We have folk, they were in the streets champing doors for Winnie Ewing in the 50s and the 60s. We've got other older folk who are now also seeing the way forward for Scotland as an independent country. So I really would like to remove the narrative from young folk, old folk. There are a lot of old folk out there campaigning for Scottish independence just as hard as the young folk. And the whole point is, we're all Jock Thompson's bairns. It doesn't matter if you're 15, if you're 75, if you're 85. You're going out chatting indoors, talking to folk, looking at making Scotland an independent country once again. Getting back what is normality. Because independence is normal. It's not just some kind of pipe dream in a few ballbags. It's normal. Look at every other country in Europe. They're independent. I don't see anybody in Estonia turning around today and say, we want the Soviet Union back. And that's the mindset we need in Scotland.
Definitely.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on to next topic, you mentioned Independence Live. I would like to ask people to go to their site, their Facebook page, and to show them support. page and to show them support?
My wave's up, that's fine.
Good evening, everyone. This is the People's International Chat Show. I would like to introduce everybody on the panel tonight. We've got from Germans for Scottish Independence, Colin McPherson. How you doing, mate?
Hi there, I'm doing fine. How's yourself?
No, I'm doing pretty good. Then we got Callum Clark. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing good, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's our show, so hey, come on. And then on probably again on the Facebook side of things, we got Ian Leckerby.
Good evening. How are you doing tonight, guys?
Doing good. We've got a couple of topics tonight. We want to start on
It's always really neck me is I like to talk to independents about lots of people and lots of different Facebook groups everywhere, right? I'm a Rangers man. So really, I don't know if you've seen previous broadcasts, you might be aware of this fact, right? And I'm not surrounded by Rangers fans here, by the way. But even within the Rangers community, and I've started to see it in the groups just in the last week or so, people starting to make the political comments. And there was someone actually put a post on saying about 80% of the Rangers supporters are SNP members. Now, I'm certainly potentially in that 80%. I don't think it's anywhere near that high, but I do think it is a question that should be asked in the Rangers community, and I have always wanted to share. So if anyone is following from any of the Rangers side of things, drop it in the comments if you are pro-independence or whether we should try and share this stream onto one of their pages and see what happens.
yeah. Callum, anything you want to discuss? Or needs to be said, you think?
There's many things, but I think one of the things that we should address is the English Parliament's absolute desire for greed. And when I say that, I mean, we'll look at the supporting that they've done for illegal wars over the years. Iraq, Syria, they've been giving bombs to Saudi Arabia. They've been supporting, not directly but indirectly, the Israeli government, the onslaught of the Palestinian people. I really don't think a modern Scotland wants to be a sort of a country that gains and profits from Wayne's dying. And I think as when we look at the overall picture and we see Wayne's malnourished and Wayne's in poverty in their own country through austerity agendas and other Wayne's dying on the other side of the bomb through psychopathic agendas, I think it's clear as day that the greed of the English government needs to leave Scotland, and we can continue to be a wee peaceful, prosperous country that looks after human beings. That's exactly what I want to talk about.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree with you, mate. I couldn't agree more. One thing. What's that?
Absolutely, Colin. I think the whole point is, I mean, we're seeing it especially over the last maybe 20 years, but at least over the last 10 years, that there is a different political agenda in Scotland. I'm not trying to hear about politicians. I'm talking about what normal folk want. The folk that are always put out at Westminster as hard working, who are being sent to food banks because they're working with 0 hours contracts. And Scotland, it does have a different mentality. I think it's been exasperated with this, with all this Brexit clusterburach. You've been seeing hate crimes against European Union citizens in England who have made their home. We're working hard. We're contributing to the economy. And in Scotland, we welcome folk. In Scotland, we don't care if anybody speaks another language. Most of the time. We got idiots in Scotland as well. Let's not say we're better than anybody else. We got our idiots as well. But as a general rule, folk in Scotland want something different than what the UK government is dragging us into. And I'm not just talking Brexit, I'm talking about a whole host of issues, be it austerity, be it privatising the NHS. And in Scotland, we have a chance, we have an opportunity to make that country that we want to be, not be dragged into something that we don't want to be by people that we don't vote for.
I agree with most of what you said there, Colin, right? But just to pick you up on one thing, there is absolutely nothing wrong with 0 hour contracts. I have often in my working career worked 0 hour contracts. The issue that you've had, and let's be factual about it, over the last 20 years you had salaries being topped up with working tax and child tax credits. That allowed employers at the time to reduce their staffing costs and hold their costs. Now what you've seen for the last 10 years that the Conservatives have been in power, there's been a slashing of those in-work benefits and yet a reduction in the actual earnings. People that were working in 2008 are making less per hour than what they are today. Still, the growth has been non-existent in wages, and that tax credit system that was in place to support that Labour introduced has been withdrawn and removed. So yeah, there is massive problems, and these are all economic levers that Scotland can ultimately take control over. But we've got to get to that stage first and foremost. But yeah, I'm a fan of 0 hour contracts personally. That was all.
Well,
there are certain situations where 0 hour contracts make sense.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Ian. There are certain folk that like to have a 0 hour contract. It does, in some cases, offer a level of flexibility. Mm-hmm. The problem with the 0 hour contracts, the way, again, as you were touching on,
it just takes someone else.
Hold on.
Takes about unemployment. I get it. Like if you put someone on a 1 hour contract.
Hold on.
Sorry, Ian. The way it's been moved in now is that the 0 hour contracts are put in place in many cases to use the workers. Now, if you are a worker and you say, I like this flexibility, this week I've got a bit more time, I'll put in 30 hours, next week I've got no time, I'll put in 10 hours, or maybe I'll take a week off. That is fine. So, again, the 0 hour contract per se is not necessarily a bad thing, but the way the 0 hour contract is being used by big business to exploit the working population, where you have folk that are effectively going to be sanctioned if they don't take the 0 hour contract. They have to get on the bus at the crack of dawn, travel 3 hours to wherever, to be sent home and say, sorry, nothing for you today. That is wrong. But again, those are levers that independent Scotland would have where we could find some kind of scenario, some kind of way between where we can say folk that want the 0 hour contracts can have them and can be happy with them, but the folk that maybe are reliant on them, so they aren't getting sanctioned, so they aren't having to go to food banks, or probably still having to go to food banks, that they are not exploited by big business. Those levers we won't get in this so-called precious union.
Well, I don't know how the 0 hour contracts work over in Scotland. Over here, I think only after about 6 months of being on 0 hour contract, they look like when you have sick time. They look at the amount of hours that you put in the per day over the last 6 months, and then they start paying out when you're sick. How does that work in Scotland? Is it about the same, or?
Yeah, it's an average, obviously, of your time worked. But obviously the point that Colin's making is you get a lot of companies will offer people 1, 2, 3 hours per week. When I came across my 0 hour contracts, it was when I was in the hospitality sector. And it just meant that you were able to pick up additional shifts. Most people in that area are students, so it allows you flexibility to say, no, I can't work that shift. There was a time when I worked with Hillman actually, and the manager in there basically threatened me. My job said, listen, you're on a 0 hour contract, so if you don't come in for this Saturday shift, then you are not going to ever work here again. So I did have to go on that Saturday shift. I had the tickets to go and see a Coldplay concert. So I don't know if she'd done me a favour, because I've never seen them since. But they can be exploited at all levels. At a point I was just 60-year-old, now I'm a 30-year-old, and I take full advantage of the 0 hour contracts that I've got organised. So yeah, you've talked about economic levers. There's also economic levers that an individual has to have. But yeah, I do feel that one of the biggest problems you've got in the current political system is you've got Westminster, and Westminster does not have any of Scotland's interests at heart. It really doesn't have anyone outside the M25 circle. And all you have to do is look at all the spending projects that are going on in there, with high-speed rail 2 and the underground networks getting improvements and City Light. It's ridiculous. I've seen a great post from someone from one of the Wales for Independence pages commenting how can Labour support Westminster and all the current spending when you can't really afford, you talk about Wales being in a deficit. London is the black hole. London has always been the black hole. Imagine how great this whole country could have been if we didn't give all the power to them.
Definitely.
I want to just come and say something. I do believe there is things that work for people that don't necessarily work for others. And the use of the 0 hour contracts, I think, has been used to a lot of disadvantages on people that shouldn't have been in their position in the first place because it didn't suit them financially. But I was quite horrified. This was a few weeks before the Edinburgh rally. I was speaking to one of my friends whose wee cousin had been laid off work and had sent her to the job centre, and the lassie had only ever worked in administrative jobs, and she was going down there and they were saying, right, apply for this, apply for that, experience needed. But she's like, I've never done anything like that, I can't apply for that if I've got no experience. So they eventually stopped her benefits, and then they got her in and sent her on a work trial type thing. And the lassie had showed up done a week. Now, at the time she was only notified it's meant to be a week, and it was until like the 3rd or 4th day there, if I remember right, it was not as a 13-week placement, working off whatever money she had, off her sanction money. Now, this poor soul, as Colin says, gets up every day, gets herself washed, gets her hair done, goes away here for buttons, bust her ass for 40 hours a week, to then at the end of the 13 weeks being told, we're not keeping you. What kind of example does that set for people that are looking for a job? How demoralising to get up 40 hours a week to get told at the end of it, we don't like you. Now, whether that she's been doing a job well or whether the job's not been done good isn't the issue. The issue is, for 13 weeks, for 40 hours a week, she could have probably got a job in that time, instead of being asked slave labouring for big company profits. That's an issue that I think in Scotland we need to look at and say, that's inhumane.
Definitely. I'm so lucky to be at the job that I am now for the last 12 and a half years. And at my job, actually, I started out on a 0-hour contract. And I'm telling you, if you have, I was lucky enough to be on a busy project, but I've had colleagues of mine that were sent home almost every day because there wasn't enough work. And that's just bloody ridiculous. I don't know, and it's not the distance is like you have to travel 3 hours, because within 3 hours you can drive through the Netherlands. So that's not the issue, but it's just ridiculous. The 0-hour contract is just for the big companies to have the numbers that they have enough people employed with not having to do anything for them, basically. That's just my view, and I'm just very happy that about 9 months into when I started working there, I got my hour contract, and 3 months later I got 3, 4, 5 months later I got my permanent contract, and yeah, still there. So I'm really lucky that I got that contract. So.
But when you look at, for examples, I mean, there's protections like in the UK. See, if you're like a postie, you start off on a temporary contract. Now, you can have that for up to 2 years. After a 2-year period, they do have to offer you a permanent contract. However, the 0 hours, I don't think there's any kind of time frame at all involved in it. So there is, you just don't like someone, you can just literally chop them off in this country the way it's set now.
It's not necessarily 2 years, it's 3 contracts. So basically it could be a 3-month contract, then 6 months, and another 6 months, whatever. And
so let me just say one thing here. All this thing about this 3 contracts of 2 years, EU law, those bastards.
Again, it works like that.
They would have got away with it, wasn't it, for the pesky EU.
All right. I don't know.
Quick shout out to the Facebook, because obviously a lot of people found this again on the second stream. So Tony, John Blair, Gail McAteer, Anna Gravis, Gail McAteer for comment. We need civil servants that work for Scotland and protect the powers we have. Powers that we should get any of the powers back from the EU or through independence. So yeah, we've got all these situations. 0-hour contract, McDonald's, sent staff home without notice after paying fares in. Didn't work on request, they gave you no notice hours, even if you pay minimum 4 hours a week, even when you're not in that. How they move them on without having to abide by law. It's a staff rotation, and unfortunately, sometimes you do have to chop staff off, but ultimately that's down to individuals not pulling their own economic levers and making an effort at the work. You know, if you're going in late constantly or whatever, you know, it's employment is a difficult situation. You do, as I said, have to sometimes, you know, it's finding that balance. But yeah, the way that they've been exploited by the Conservative Party effectively so that the Tories can turn around every time in Westminster and say, we've got the lowest unemployment. And it's like, that's only because you're offering people 1 or 2 hour contracts. There is companies like McDonald's that exploit it. Obviously the ones that you're talking about as well, where people go into, you know, Callum, you know, go work as a hair salon or do it, you know, go work at Aldi's or anything like that. I mean, I think Aldi's actually shocked to mention it. I think they are one of the good employers, you know, when it comes to the food market. But I think Asda's one of the big ones that use it, where they get people off the dole straight into do so many weeks worth of work to go back to the job centre and not be offered a contract. Tesco's is shedding 9,000 jobs across the UK because they're getting rid of the deli counters. So we've seen the tills being replaced with machines. We're seeing the deli counters get replaced with frozen produce, brought into the store and then heated up, because that's how all our food is going to come in. Because after Brexit, we are an island and we are going to have many, many issues, both with jobs, I could turn and start listing off half a dozen companies that are leaving. Dyson is away. EasyJet are registered in Austria. Rolls-Royce, gone. Jaguar, gone. Many financial institutes looking at moving to private. I think the Netherlands has had something like 240 work applications, in recent months for companies looking to do either part transfers or. And it's actually, if you go to the HMR website, right, I shit you not, it's there in black and white. It says if you have some sort of interest in Europe, you're better going setting up a company over there than now. So you've got some way of going between the two. That's the UK actively telling businesses to move out. It's ludicrous. Brexit is a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Definitely. I try to people, if you have any doubt of why Scotland should be independent, just two simple examples. A while back, I heard a story that Westminster was moving the sea borders to get a hold of the
North Sea? Fishery?
No, God, I didn't get them. The
Well, we've done it in
years ago.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason for setting up the Scottish Parliament and Labour allowed it
Sustainable
was
energy.
to redraw the sea border. But I think they're going to move it even further. They're going to take a bigger latitude.
And
it's ridiculous.
so that's one. But they also do it with Scottish produce. They just, like for instance the whiskey, they take it down south and put a bloody Union Jack on there and say it's British produce. People, how can you look at that and think that's normal? I just can't believe it. If like for instance, out of my country, produce was taken to Germany and they put a German flag on it. Sorry, Colin. But that will be the same thing. That's ridiculous. It's Scottish produce. The revenue should go to Scotland and not to that cesspool of a place down south.
But bear in mind, like,
They're making enough good cheese. They don't need the Dutch cheese.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's just ridiculous that something is taken to another place and claiming to be from there. It's
I agree
ridiculous.
with you. I mean, but again, that is the narrative we're seeing at the moment. And again, you won't be seeing it in mainstream media. But if you watch carefully, this narrative is being hyped up. We've got the Scottish office, now the UK government in Scotland, a nice wee rebrand, so that Mr. Mundell is now the UK government in Scotland. I mean, if Mr. Mundell is the UK government in Scotland, that has to be one of the most coherent arguments for independence ever.
Oh yeah. Isn't never.
I think you just have to go and run about your communities and see the lack of facilities, the lack of opportunity, the lack of stuff there for the kids, the lack of occupational therapists, the lack of help for the old buddies. If that doesn't wake you up for independence, I don't believe anything else will.
yeah. It's a sad situation. I mean, you've had years of Tory-led austerity, which has meant that all these social clubs aren't getting funding, the councils aren't getting the funding to renovate the parks, to fix the potholes. We are in a horrible situation where the Westminster Holyrood has done its best, but it's had its own budget cut every year since the Tories have been in power, and yet they've still managed to deliver the best health service in the country. We've still seen massive infrastructure projects like the new Forth Crossing. We've seen massive upgrades to our motorway networks across central Scotland. We've seen all sorts of phenomenal work being done. Free prescriptions in that time as well. Free health, university tuition fees included. And these are all things that are great, but we could be doing so much more once we get the ultimate control, which is independence. We can sit down as a nation and rather than bicker about should we or not be independent or not, or all this pish about Westminster coming up and ruling how we go, let's sit down, get our politicians in that parliament that we've built and we've worked on for the last 20 years, and let's really get them to work. Let's get them to work on what we can become.
Definitely.
I agree with that, mate. I think as well that you just touched on there, like you're saying, the bridges and all the work that's been done and running the health service the way it's been done. It's an absolute credit to each and every worker in all those fields. They're an absolute credit to this country, and it shows that we do have the talent and the leadership in an abundance to deliver across all spectrums to make Scottish life better for every single individual in the country. And as Collins touches on every week, and rightly so, about the citizens' rights, in an independent Scotland, I want to make sure that those who come and contribute and build here and let their kids go to school and work in the hospitals and work on the buses and so on and so forth, to let them know, you guys are safe here. You are not going to be, part of Project Windrush. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Those people come over here, they were treated with absolute disrespect and booted out without a second thought for leaving the contribution that they had brought into the bloody country. Scotland can offer so much more than that. We don't want to be part of that.
Definitely not. All right, guys. In my book, we had a great show. I want to ask you for final comments for this week. Colin.
Well, my final comment for this week is, first of all, watch this space. Let's see what's going to happen with Theresa May's plan B, Z plus 4.5 or whatever she comes up with. She's running down the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that there isn't going to be a great deal more coming from the EU. They've already bent over backwards to accommodate her red lines. And she must know herself that she's not going to get anywhere when she has her conversations with the various parliamentarians and leaders in Europe. But coming up to Brexit, whatever happens with Brexit, on the 29th of March, deal or no deal, Scotland is going to be dragged out of the European Union against its will. And so in Germany, we've had this wee idea that on the 16th of March, a fortnight beforehand, we're going to have our next march and rally for Scottish independence in Berlin. We did one 2017. It was a great success. Brian, I know you were there.
Yeah.
It was a great day. Not just the march and rally itself, but also get together with folk, just having a wee chat in the pub afterwards, same as what we do in The Hague every year.
Yeah.
This year, the 16th of March is the Saturday in Berlin. The first speakers are confirmed. We have from the Italians for Scottish Independence, Giada Mazzetti. Ferran, I can't remember his second name, he was in Berlin 2017. He's going to be speaking from a Catalonian perspective. Basically, Ian Blackford pointed out in his speech at Westminster yesterday that Scotland has always had a close bond with Germany, going back to the 13th century. Scotland has not just had a close bond with Germany, but with the rest of Europe. And that's been going back for hundreds of years. Scotland wants to retain those bonds, and so Germans for Independence are going to put on this march and rally at indylive.radio is the hashtag. Follow us on Twitter. You'll see the various speakers that we have coming, musicians we have coming. We've got a few in the pipeline, more announcements coming over the next few days. Basically, Scotland wants to be at the heart of Europe, and we want to do a wee bit to show that Scotland is welcome at the heart heart of Europe. And what better way to do that than starting a march and rally in front of the Brandenburg Gate, the symbol of a disunited Europe, just 30 odd years ago. Again, as I said before, when we started the rally in 2017, it was the death strip in old East Germany. If you were standing where I was standing, I had a microphone in my hand. I said a few words. I wouldn't need a microphone in my hand. If I'd just been standing there, I'd have been shot dead by the East German police. Things have moved on. In Scotland, we've moved on with the independence movement. We are getting very close to our goal. And so, on March 16th, 2019 in Berlin, we're going to show that Scotland is welcome at the heart of Europe.
Amen, brother. Amen. Callum, your final thoughts for tonight?
I think if Andy's going to be talking about Brexit, you may as well start it in a galaxy not long ago, far, far away. It's absolute pantomime stuff at best. But what we should be looking at doing in the community, guys, is helping out when we can. Small donations to the food banks, being kind to one another, just bouncing off each other and generally being there. It will go a long way. And I just want to say thanks for tuning in and listening to us tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, mate. Ian?
Yeah, on the Facebook side of things, guys, thanks for engaging with us. Thanks for all your comments. Just a few last shout-outs to everyone that was tuning in there. Ronald, Tony, Raymond, thanks all again for hanging out on the chat. We will look to replay this show tomorrow on our watch party. So a few of us will try and jump in the conversation there. And that way, see this pish, when they cut us off, we won't be able to do that because it will be queued up video back to back. So thanks again for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. And give the page a wee like, give us a follow, check out our content, and just keep engaging, have the conversations with all your friends and family, keep it going.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I would like to give a quick shout out to our friends at the Scottish Resistance, which actually I'm a member of as well. I would like to ask you guys also to maybe look at that site and Facebook pages. The site is the Scottish Resistance .scot. We're looking for people to help out with the protest, with and at events. So if you would like to do anything at all, just go to the site, fill in the form, and hopefully we'll see each other there. On our side of things, one thing that we've talked about over the months past is Plan B, People's Doorstep Referendum. I will keep it short. We've talked about this so many times that you probably know what it is about. If you don't, please just go to our site, peoplesdoorstepreferendum.com. Find the info, look at the info. There are videos there, there are text there to help you out and to explain what it is about. It is a Plan B to put the voice back into your hands. To basically say to the politicians, we're taking the vote ourselves and this is what we want. The only thing we want you to do is to download the form, fill it in with 9 signatures plus address plus your own, and you can now upload it via the site or send it by email back to us on info@peoplesdoorstepreferendum.com, and we will process them and go from there. One last thing. We talked about the event in Berlin. Netherlands for Scottish Independence will also hold another march and rally in The Hague this year. That will be on May 25th of this year. And we haven't announced that many people yet, but more coming soon, and one that is a couple of people that are coming. One of our own, Samuel Cook, and Pete Skelly, and more will be announced very soon. For both the Germans for Scottish Independence and Netherlands for Scottish Independence, we, if I'm incorrect about this, Colin, apologize, but we both have a crowdfund going to help us put the event together. So please go to our pages, and if you could help us in any way,